Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. We need to fix the audio. That should have it going. Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. Hopefully, we have everything working properly here. Got some audio. There it goes. That looks good. 16 articles in this episode for you. Before I get started here, I'd like to thank everybody that joined me for the live broadcast earlier, and hopefully didn't get in on it, will get in on it next week. We had a great time. If you haven't yet, you might take a look at that. There's some good laughs in that. Uh, we had a hoot. First article that I have for you here this morning, Pretty Writers News. Waiting for my poor little decrepit hamster to catch up to me and get it up here on my screen for me. Buddy, he's a spinning. It's starting to come up here now. It's over. What just leaked about John McCain in Russia has Trump grinning from cheek to cheek. And his ties to Russia keep on getting more bizarre. McCain was a presidential candidate in 2008. Vitaly Churkin, a Russian ambassador to the UN, to donate, according to WikiLeaks. Fast forward to 2016, John McCain is now accusing Russia of hacking and meddling in U.S. politics. Solicited Russia to interfere in the 2008 campaign. What makes it even more bizarre, Churkin died suddenly on Monday. News his death is suspicious. If you want to pull it up and take a look at it, it says supposedly the Russian government to John McCain at the we have received a letter from Senator John McCain requesting financial contribution to his presidential campaign. In section, we would like to reiterate that the permanent mission of the Russian Federation to the United Nations or the Russian government do not finance political activity in foreign countries. There's a letter here in this. Take a look at that. It says the above letter has been verified by WikiLeaks. This mean for John McCain? It means that he is a treasonous liar for the American people. John McCain, and we need to get this rhino kicked out of office. From their lips to God's ear, that's what I've been saying all along, but still in there. What it takes. The next one we got Liberty headlines. And all these URLs are in the description of the video, so you can pull them up and take a look at them for yourself. Audio cuts out or my internet cuts out or whatever, and pieces are missing of this is for my listeners. So I can't do anything about the internet, you know. All I can do is just do it from my end and hope that everything else cooperates. This says politicos and bureaucrats use disappearing message apps to hide their deeds. I believe Washington players from both anti-Trump camps are using encrypted apps, well, because the other side is using encrypted apps. Open government, meanwhile, are worried about so the public, they say, has a right to know what servants are doing. All of this comes, of course, against the backdrop of the controversy over former Hillary Clinton's use of a server for at least some official business, which said cost her presidential campaign or her presidential election. The most prominent story on all this came on February the 17th. Staffers are reportedly communicating via the encrypted messaging app called the main feature of which messages. Axios reported last week that top GOP operatives and administration have been using the app to communicate out their fear that they might be hacked. Respondents made public. Post reported this week that amid the fallout of National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's resignation, White House staffers are using Confide out, and Trump is planning to crack down on leaks to the media. Republicans reportedly, reports The Hill, House Republicans reports that federal workers are using encrypted messaging apps to avoid being monitored by their supervisors. House GOP's White House allies use apps to avoid detection. The House GOP worries about liberal bureaucrats using apps to avoid detection. Some members of Congress are demanding an investigation into the Environmental Protection Agency's use of texting and encrypting apps or chat apps. Federal employees with concerns about impact of President Donald Trump's administration have turned to encrypted messaging apps, new email addresses, and other ways to coordinate. So Lamar Smith, a Texas Republican who chairs the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, and committee member Darren LaHood, Republican of Illinois, felt moved to send a letter to the EPA Inspector General Arthur A. Elkins Jr., asking him to determine to launch a full-scale review of EPA workers' use of encrypted apps. Telegraph, meanwhile, runs a story headline, "Deep State Uses Encryption to Subvert Trump Administration," is the suddenly popular term for intelligence community. Some experts suspect that try this again. Some experts suspect that its exerts control over public policy, regardless of which policy is currently in power. Its members from intelligence and high bureaucracy guide policy through leaking of internal dissent. And since its beginning, Trump administration has dealt with friction itself to deal with this division of priorities in the federal government. Federal employees have reportedly to communicate amongst themselves to discuss strategies for resisting White House edicts. Governments say this is all worrisome, but that encryption for public employees' private communications might not run afoul of open records laws as long as the messages are properly achieved. Remotely pertaining to public business, they say, must be available for review. It is very straightforward, Alex Howard, deputy director of the Sunlight Foundation, told the web publication. If you are using a messaging platform, IM, collaborative chat, email, Facebook Messenger, ethereal messaging, or encrypted applications, they are all subject to archiving requirements. If you conduct public business using any computing device, messaging you exchange is something that should be archived, period. Finally, dogs insist the government not encrypt electronic communications, interfere with the public's right to monitor official action, insists that ordinary citizens be able to encrypt private messages from the government. Law enforcement agencies tend to disagree, as Cointelegraph reported. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has maintained a stance enforcement on data access matters, coming out against end-to-end encryption and in favor of backdoor access to encrypted apps for law enforcement agencies. Initial pick by the Trump administration, downloads for Edward Snowden endorsed encrypted messaging app Signal saw a rapid increase. In Europe, the war on encryption is already. The UK passed a law late last year, investigatory powers bill, mass surveillance on its citizens. All of which is an indicator, some say, of how easy it is for rapidly developing technology to outstrip the ability of deliberative democracy and determine rules for the technology's use. America needs to have an adult conversation on the pros and cons and uses and abuses of encryption, said FBI Director James Comey in remarks last summer. We need to understand in the FBI how this exactly is affecting our work and then share that with folks. Likewise, say civilian, libertarian, ordinary folks need to make sure that law enforcement understands why privacy from overbearing government also remains important. For tech firm, civil liberty organization, and wrote to then President Obama in 2015, encryption protects billions of people every day against countless threats. Criminals trying to steal our phones and laptops, computer criminals trying to defraud us, trying to obtain our company's most valuable trade secrets, or, they added, it's trying to stifle dissent. What I have for you is off of Liberty Riders. Running again. Come on, fella. There we go. After attacking Trump for a month, Maxine Waters just got some really bad news this morning. By dim, I mean dumb. You see a ton of them admitting to crimes like during a chat show this morning, Maxine Waters, Democrat of California, admitted that she committed fraud. Media's not going to cover this. Hear this video everywhere after you watch it. Doesn't think illegals can do the same thing. On the show called The Real on Tuesday, and told she lied about her age to get a job. A video clip here. It says Waters said, "We would put our ages up. I was about 14 years old and I lied. I said I was 16 so I could get a Social Security card." The Real women were outraged that workers were not even allowed to work at the restaurant. They weren't horrified that Maxine had committed fraud. They then tried to prove that it was some sort of racial prejudice. Maxine Waters said about Trump today, and there's a video of that, says she called Trump and his cabinet a bunch of scumbags. Sounds like some projections to me. Office. Liberty Riders news. Oh, that's right. We voted him in, didn't we? Wow. Liberty Riders. It says, whoa, President Trump just made a shocking decision on transgender bathrooms. Parents are cheering. When Obama was in office, he introduced guidelines for public schools, forcing them to let young boys use the restroom and even shower in the same locker room as girls. Parents across the nation were outraged. If schools didn't comply with King Obama's ruling, they would be stripped of federal funds. Well, President Trump, and here's a quote, President Donald Trump's administration is revoking Obama's guidelines issued to public schools demanding they comply with transgender, unquote. A draft document seen on Wednesday by Rutgers refers Barack Obama's intrusive ruling on transgender rights, which instructed public schools to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of the gender they identify with. The White House confirmed Wednesday that updated guidance to schools would come out later in the day. Liberals will undoubtedly attempt to paint Trump as homophobic for this order, but Trump's decision has more to do with states' rights than anything. The president made it clear throughout the campaign that he's a firm believer in states' rights and that certain issues like this is dealt with at the federal level. Sean Spicer. The federal law that bans sex discrimination in education will still remain in place. Under the new guidelines, public schools should set their own rules without fear of losing federal funds or a lawsuit from the Justice Department. Issue with transgender Americans. As a candidate, he even welcomed famous transgender Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner, to use the restroom of her choice at Trump Tower. But when it comes to children, President Trump thinks the state is best for their residents. Couldn't be happier. Breitbart, pick this stuff up. Lord have mercy. Let the hamster run in the wheel and get this one up here. Governor's Mansion queer dance freak out protest bathroom bill. And as a small protest over the Texas bathroom bill grew to a 75-person out on the street in front of historic Texas governor's mansion. Tested a bill in the Texas legislature that would require men and women to use bathrooms and dressing rooms designated on their birth certificate. Brown's Senate Bill 6, the Act, State Senator Colhorst, Republican of Brenham, reported on the bill in January when the senator pre-filed the law, if passed, would enhance the penalties for a litany of crimes committed in a bathroom against any individual, regardless of their sex or gender identity, Breitbart Texas Lana Shadwick wrote. The Privacy Act is a thoughtful solution to a sensitive issue, an expected level of privacy for our public schools and buildings, Colhorst statement. Also allows for schools and universities to make personal accommodations for those requesting an alternate setting. 6 also allows Texas businesses to determine their own policy without government interference. A Facebook event page invited protesters to the mansion, stating everything is freakier in Texas. Outside the governor's mansion to show we are not going to take a transphobic and homophobic law. Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick and their administration have got it pipeline. Social media lit up as the dance-a-thon geared up, and they got some video and stuff of this here if you want to. It says this Twitter intern happy with protesters. They tweeted, outrage, left holds a queer dance freakout to intimidate Texas governor. Texas Commissioner Sid Mill presented his feelings about the protest on Facebook. Sad thing is that these folks think their activities will help kill the bathroom safety bill, Miller protested. In reality, their actions demonstrate just why such a bill is needed and why and will only increase its chance of passage. As the afternoon protest continued, the crowd grew to about 200 people. The Austin Chronicle posted live video from the freakout dance, and that's in here if you want to take a look at that. My goodness. The next one here is off of Liberty Riders. Hamster's running. Little more. There we go. Oh my God. Who just got kicked out of CPAC? President Trump is so proud. This one says, liberals love labeling conservatives as racist and anti-Semitic, but the truth is, we hate that kind of behavior. Republicans who freed the slaves and fought Jim Crow laws, and we still stand strong in our, but every once in a while, you get a racist lunatic who the media uses to paint all conservatives with broad brush. In this case, job is Richard Smith, or that whack job is Richard Spencer, a Semitic bigot who became known after video emerged of him leading a crowd in the Hail Hitler salute. Is banned from the UK and 26 other European countries after he was deported from Hungary for organizing a conference for white nationalists. During the campaign, Spencer announced his support for Trump, even though Trump plainly said that he does not want any support from white nationalists. With Trump in denouncing racism, that's why Richard Spencer was kicked out when he showed up at CPAC. It says controversial alt-right leader Richard Spencer showed up at Conservative Political Action Committee, otherwise known as CPAC, Thursday, only to be escorted out by security. what real conservatives think of bigots who hate Jews and support Hitler. We won't stand for it. We'll report the admirable move conservatives just made, so share this. And there's some tweets and stuff in this if you want to pull that up and take a look at that. Next one we have is off of westernjournalism.com. He's running. That poor little fella. Body found near CPAC. It's suicide Thursday in National Harbor, Maryland, near the site of the Conservative Political Action Conference. The man's body was found a little over a block away from the Gaylord Convention Center, where CPAC is being held, and jumped to his death. Witness Mohammed said he was in his car and saw the man hit the ground. He described the person as middle-aged white male. Officer Tyler Hunter of the Prince George's County Police Department said, "At this point, we are ruling this death a suicide." Tweeted from those at the conference. And there's tweets about it. One says, "I walked right past it after with police tape," and says police barricade the area where the man just fell to his death, apparently from parking garage. And the victim appears to have been employed by a nearby business. Police said there did not appear to be any connection between the man and CPAC. The incident comes one day before President Donald Trump is scheduled to speak to the conference on Friday. One is off of Liberty Riders. Come on, hamster. Fast he can go with his 3 legs. Huge scandal. Trump just revealed who is really behind anti-Trump protesters. This changes everything. There have been all these reports from mainstream media of angry locals showing up and demanding their politicians oppose. Seems pretty weird considering we all voted for him, right? Trump thought so too. That's why he did some digging and found something sick. Trump supporters were never Trump supporters at all. They are liberal plants. And he puts out the so-called angry crowds in home districts of some Republicans are actually, in numerous cases, planned out by liberal activists. Sad. The article continues. It says, just take a look for yourself at this video of Hillary Clinton's favorite lapdog, Robert Reich, literally instructing his liberal cronies to go out and do exactly what Trump is warning us about. Take a look at that video. Pull this URL up. It says, so sure, maybe liberals will try and be like, well, that doesn't prove anything. After all, if it's not CNN, it has to be fake news. We're not stupid. The evidence, or all the evidence you need, is right here. Now, what do we do about it? Well, we fight back. We go to those town halls, we call our local politicians, and we let them know we support our president and his policies. Can easily drown out all the fake news out there. Is share this so that this to every true supporter we know and organize a force bigger than they could ever. And the next one here is off of and we wait for the hamster. I'll take a drink here while hamster. Here we go. Obamacare architect Ezekiel Emanuel joins Fox contributor. In a move that will likely shock many of the network's more conservative viewers, Fox News Channel announced Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, healthcare and policy analysis contributor, on Tuesday. Emanuel, the brother of former Obama advisor and Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, chief architects of Obamacare, along with Jonathan Gruber, who gained notoriety in 2014 after mocking the intelligence of the American voter. Emanuel is not the Obama official to join weeks. He signed, his signing follows closely on the heels of former State Department spokesperson Marie Harf. Contributor earlier, Emanuel has made numerous appearances on Fox News in the past, news relating to Obamacare with various hosts. In an October appearance with Megyn Kelly, Emanuel downplayed the rate of premiums around the country, saying the increases were not hikes. He also blamed Senator Mark Rubio, Republican of Florida, for some of the rate hikes because he claimed the senator removed risk corridors designed to prevent too many sick people. In November, Emanuel became locked in a heated debate on Tucker Carlson tonight to defend the track record of Obamacare. Emanuel tried to defend the reason behind the individual mandate of Obamacare. People haven't understood that if you want disease condition exclusion mandate, inexplicably public, of course, cake and eat it too, but you cannot have both of those. Fox, Emanuel appeared on MSNBC's introducing his guest, co-host Joe Scarborough. Listen, to be honest, Zeke only worked on part of the Affordable Health Care Act that's causing increase of 25%. And there's video there if you want to see that. New role with the network, Emanuel will make appearances on both Fox News Channel and Fox Business Network. Currently serves as chair for the Department of Medical Ethics and Health Policy at the University of Pennsylvania, fellow at the Center for American Progress. The Council on Foreign Relations, serves as the chair for Future Healthcare Committee Economic Forum, and served under President Clinton's Healthcare Task Force. One is off of Western journalism, and it says, gets it up here. Come on, guy. Presidential library price tag could be 3 times more than George W. Bush's. Former President Barack Obama's presidential center could require a $1.5 billion endowment to charge the library's design. To put the figure in perspective, the cost estimate for the Obama Center is 3 times the amount of money that George W. Bush was required to raise for his presidential center in Dallas. The unprecedented cost requirements for Obama Center, a presidential library dedicated to the lives of Barack and Michelle Obama, are leading some to question how the funds will be raised. Said Todd Williams, one of the architects for the Obama Center, it's not just about preserving the past, it's about the future. Since 1986, the federal government has required former presidents to create private endowments to offset the operating costs of their presidential libraries. Obama's predecessors were required to have an endowment representing 20% of the total cost of their libraries. However, due to an amendment 8, Obama's endowment will need to represent 60% of the total cost of his presidential center. Obama refused to do any sort of fundraising for his presidential center while still in office. The former president may have difficulty $1.5 billion endowment. After the construction of Obama's presidential center is completed, it will be granted to the National Archives and Records Administration, which will preserve his records and other historical materials for public review. But even after construction of Obama's library is completed, taxpayers will still be footing the bill to keep the library operating. In 2015, the Chicago Tribune reported that taxpayers spent $66 million on running the 13 libraries for every president since Franklin D. Roosevelt. The federal government covers the cost for staffing, maintenance, and of presidential libraries. The foundation of former presidents fund the program and exhibits of their libraries. Director of the National Archives Office of Presidential Libraries argues that the money spent for the federal government to operate presidential libraries is justified since they enable citizens to access the records of previous presidents. Others, such as Benjamin Huffbauer, a scholar at the University of Louisville, disagrees. Museums established by presidents, Huffbauer told Chicago Tribune, but they want the federal government to run them and give them legitimacy. Have it. I think that we need to save a lot of money is what I think we need to do. Oh my, this one is off of BizPack Review. And I'll just, while we're waiting to answer, I'll just say, you know, we need to go back to what I said in my live show. Let's drive them from the temple. Huffington Post caught deleting a story that stated Trump was absolutely right about Sweden. Deleted a story on its website that said President Donald Trump was correct about Sweden. Is not likely to be a surprise to anyone that has followed the liberal news outlet during the presidential campaign, where the website had a disclaimer on the story that involved President Donald Trump that painted him as a racist and liar, among other things. The article, absolutely right about Sweden, was written by Norwegian journalist Renee Zolgafus, who accused the media of hiding the fact that Trump is correct about the issues facing Sweden because of the Easterners. Journalists around the world are eager to condemn Donald Trump no matter what. Zolgafus wrote about immigration in Sweden a few days ago. The social media exploded. Most of the opponent has made up immigration problem Swedes have, and they are wrong. He said, Europeans and Scandinavians, that liberal immigration comes with drugs, wars, robbery, and violence. Several European cities have huge immigration problems where even the police force is afraid to interfere in some locations in. The fact is that the press here in Europe hasn't been doing their job properly, he said. A spokesperson for the Post told the Daily Caller in a statement that this was self-published post distribution platform, and our editors removed it after determining that it violated our terms of use. An archived version on the article can be found and read online, and there's a link to that up and read that for yourself. It says perhaps it violated the anti-president Donald Trump narrative that social media lambasted the website for its bias. Here, if you want to read what they had to say, you can pull that up and take a look at that. The next one here is off of Liberty Writers. Wait for the hamster. It says, holy crap, what Nancy Pelosi just said on kicked out of the country. Nancy Pelosi is the minority leader and gave a speech to the Chamber of Commerce. Having a wall and claimed that we technology and manpower on the border instead. Continued her mindless blabber. And here's a quote. It says, I was thinking when we were in Mexico City and being greeted by the president and the prime minister and the rest of it. Civilization here. Mexico is such a fabulous place. And it's got video of her if you want. Or I can't stand it. It's just, Pelosi appears to think Mexico has better society. Seriously. What kind of world does this woman live in? The administration thought that Mexico is dangerous. The U.S. Department of State warns U.S. citizens about the risk of traveling to certain parts of Mexico due to the activities of criminal organizations in those areas. U.S. citizens have been the victims of violent crimes, including homicide, kidnapping, carjacking, and robbery in various Mexican states. This travel warning replaces the travel warning for Mexico issued April the 15th of 2016, unquote. Rate in Mexico is nearly 50%, according to a report put out last year by the Borgen Project. Good. Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi go live there, right? Oh, we could only hope. The next one is off of BizPack Review. I ain't got much money, but I'd buy her one-way ticket. Uh, Clueless Chelsea. Full story feds checked IDs on flight. Never mind, it turned out to be nothing. Oh, the horror of Trump's America. Check before you jump to conclusions. When Chelsea Clinton heard that Customs and Border Patrol agents were checking identifications of passengers departing a domestic flight, she immediately and came up with 5. Oppo agents demanding papers, please, apparently echoed in her brain and sent her tizzy. The agents were checking people disembarking Delta Flight 1583 at New York's JFK Airport Wednesday night, which originated in San Francisco. Vice News and Jarrett reported it out, and Sam Jarrett tweeted out, says, my flight from JFK, we were told we couldn't disembark without showing our documents. Picked up on this and immediately thought the worst. America 2017, Trump's America, she tweeted. Her message was delivered through a huge megaphone, and she has more than 1.5 million followers. They included some members of the media who were all too eager to run with the story. And they jumped all over this, and there's tweets. There's a whole slew of tweets that about this. One of them, I'll just grab one. Says, here is the bottom. President is rounding up all the illegals, bad hombres, and shipping them back, all at taxpayers' cost. Did manage to get to the bottom of this, and it had nothing to do with President Trump rounding up all the illegals. It turned out that Customs and Border Patrol agents were requested to check IDs of passengers departing that specific flight, illegal immigrant who was the subject of the order. The Washington Post reported, according to the agency, 2 agents asked passengers who had been on Delta Flight 1583 from San Francisco to show their identification while deplaning JFK Airport at about 8 p.m. Wednesday. The search was conducted at the request of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, he said in a statement, but the person they were seeking was not on the flight. Something of a bad hombre who received a deportation order after committing multiple criminal offenses, including domestic assault, driving while impaired, and violating a protective order. New York Civil Liberties Union lawyer Jordan Well told the Post that this is nothing unusual. Someone off a flight or officers will come on and make an arrest, Well said. Much more surgical thing than setting up a dragnet. That's what is so alarming about the way that is played out. Try this again. The Vice News passenger who originally raised the alarm, all the drama had she simply checked for the CBP agents checking papers on the other flight arrivals. But that wouldn't have been as much fun, and Chelsea Clinton would have been denied her America in 2017 observation. That is off of .com. You'd think eventually Chelsea'd learn to shut up, wouldn't you? Oh my. Well, Puerto Rico governor meets with top U.S. officials amid crisis. Puerto Rico's governor with U.S. Treasury and health secretaries to seek support in pulling the island out of deep economic crisis. Ricardo Rosello traveled to Washington, D.C. to talk in part with Treasury Secretary Gibson about how the U.S. territory's economy. He spoke by phone with the chair of the Federal Control Board, Congress, last year to oversee Puerto Rico's finances. In a statement that he was familiar with Puerto Rico's ongoing economic challenges and urged Rosello's administration to work. It is unclear what kind of relationship the Department of Treasury will develop with Rosello under the U.S. President Donald Trump. Secretary under former President Barack Obama worked closely with Puerto Rico government officials and was key in developing a financial package that led to development of the board. Also met with U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, dwindling Medicaid funds. Stands to lose about $1 billion funding by the year's end. Also said that he wants to know how Puerto Rico will fit into Trump's vision model. The meetings come just days before Rosello is required to submit a 10-year fiscal plan to a federal-controlled board to obtain painful austerity measures. Puerto Rico is mired in a decade-long economic slump, structure nearly in public debt. This article is off of BizPac Review. The hamster is spinning. Come on, buddy. To thin out liberal profs to more balanced academic playing field on college campuses. Making liberal heads explode has been introduced in the Iowa Senate, something liberals scream for consistently. Senate File 288, increase among the state's university faculties of conservative-leaning professors are within 10% of liberals. Senate File 288 seeks to distinguish federal, try that again, liberal from conservative faculty members by concentrating on their party affiliation it provides. And here's the quote out of it. It says, a person shall not be hired as a professor, instructor, member of the faculty at such an institution if the person's political party affiliation on the date of hire would cause the percentage of the faculty belonging to one political party to exceed by 10% the percentage of the faculty belonging to the other political party. Chogrin, the lawmaker who drafted the legislation, said, with current hiring practices, college and university. Says, I'm under the understanding now they can hire people because of diversity. The Tumwa Republican said they want to have people of different thinking, different processes, different expertise. So this would fall right into the category with what existing hiring practices are. With no party affiliation, wouldn't be counted into the mix. Chogrin added that it would benefit students to know beforehand a professor's leanings. Of taxpayer dollars that go to support these fine universities, he said, students should be able to go to their professors and ask opinions, and they should know whether that professor is a Republican or a Democrat or no party affiliation, and therefore they can expect their answers to be given honest way possible, but they should have the ability to ask questions of professors of different political ideologies. Professed and a parent found all sorts of objections to the bill. A list of tweets. Professor James T. Todd observed that the bill would likely do something other than achieve parity between liberal and conservative lecturers. And then again, quotes, whether on the basis of race, sex, religion, sexual orientation, or any other factor is seldom a good idea. Also, laws, even those based on the best of intentions, have a way of backfiring. Think about Obamacare. That I have is off the Conservative Tribune. One in this episode, and there's more episodes to come. Trump gets slammed by left for golfing. From Obama. Liberals are having a good time slamming President Donald Trump for golfing. He isn't getting much work done. A month into his presidency, reports are circulating about Trump golfing with Rory McIlroy and Japanese Prime Minister Abe, or Shinzo Abe. It says what the left won't point out is the fact that while Trump may be golfing, he's also getting things accomplished. In fact, he's getting so many things done that the media has a hard time keeping up with him. Wouldn't try so hard to find something wrong with everything he did, they might realize Trump has already laid the groundwork for the next 4 years. Trump is working to clean up the mess former Obama left him. He withdrew the U.S. from Trans-Pacific Partnership. He put construction of a southern border wall in motion. He ordered a hiring freeze on federal hiring other than for the military and public safety jobs. And in addition, he began the repeal of Obamacare, ended federal funding to sanctuary cities, and forward on the Dakota Access pipelines. And that's not all of the things he's accomplished so far. They're going to slam Trump for golfing, everything he does, but no one can accuse him of being a slacker. And those who have been against Trump since the beginning will try, however. We shouldn't expect them to ever recognize anything positive Trump's ever do. It's going to be a long 4 years for them. In this episode, if you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up, share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Stay informed. I'll see you in the next one.